opening up the altar of our hearts so that we could be present to what needs to be healed this Lenten season, and so that we could be present to the presence, open, allowing what is coming our way to come and to be present. Today is all about welcoming what is occurring right now, whether that is a change in the service, a different daily word reader than we anticipated, or a musician who's at home recuperating. So it's very important for us to learn to welcome what is before us, right here, right now, so that we don't miss the now. A couple of weeks ago, Judy Gatton was facilitating, and she told us the story of Peter and the golden thread. So if you don't remember the story, it was about a young man who was given a magical ball of thread. And as he pulled the thread out, he could make time go by faster. At the conclusion of the story, he was getting ready to transition, and he realized that he had not lived his life. How many of us, as we become older, realize that there are things that we've missed because we haven't been present? In fact, I would say that most of us probably spend a lot of time living in the when. When I graduate, when I get my first car, when I get married, when I find that perfect job. Oh, and don't forget, when I find that perfect spouse. When I retire, finally. We spend so much time in when that we completely miss the now. And so welcoming the moment is all about opening ourselves up to being fully present right here. So I want to share with you another story. This is a story about an ordinary snail. Just a snail who's snailing along. And one day he gets an invitation from some racing snails to come for coffee and cake. He's very excited and decides that he'd probably better set out immediately since the appointment's in 2 days. And so our snail is snailing along, and he comes upon this beautiful garden with the most luscious green leaves he has ever seen. Well, what's a snail to do but to sample this bounty? So he takes some time and eats all the leafy green vegetables and finally decides that he's satiated, and he begins to snail along some more. When what does he spy up ahead? Oh, the most comfortable, smooth-looking rock next to a babbling brook. Just the perfect place for a snail nap. He curls up on the rock. He has a moment where he thinks, oh no, I better not stop. I'm going to be late. No, I think I'll just be present to the moment and enjoy what's before me. And so our little snail's travels continued. He did eventually make his destination, long after the racing snails had gone. In fact, there wasn't even a crumb of cake left for him. But the snail was not discouraged. In fact, a little bug passing by looked at him curiously. I don't understand. Clearly, you missed the party. What are you so happy about? The snail smiled, because now I have all the time I need to enjoy the trip back. What does the snail have to teach us? About finding the inherent joy in the moment, the inherent joy in just the ordinary. To welcome the present moment, you have to be willing to live consciously. That is, in a state where you are intentionally paying attention. There's an English author, her name is Margaret Storm Jameson. She once talked about how we all spend too much time living in the past. We are either regretting the joys that we've missed or feeling guilty or ashamed of the things that we've done wrong. When we do manage to step into the future, it's to either dread what's going to happen or anxiously anticipate it, always forgetting about the future. And she writes, the only way to live is to accept each minute as an unrepeatable miracle. Work at your work, play at your play. Shed your tears. Enjoy your laughter. Now is the time of your life. Now. The Buddhists say that the present moment is the only moment. Just breathe into that. Unrepeatable miracle. One moment. The only moment. Even this morning, do you realize that this will never happen again? You may or may not sit in the same pew, but you won't look the same. You won't be the same. The message, hopefully, won't be the same. This moment will never come to pass again. You will never be with these people in the same way that you were with them in this moment. Wow. Isn't that amazing? And so, how is it then that we miss it? We miss all of it. Even now, somebody is making a to-do list. When I get home, I got to put the chicken on, and oh, I forgot to call that person. Oh, I didn't check my Facebook this morning. Yeah, I hear you. How do we cultivate this state of living consciously, of being present to the wow of now? One of the things that we can do, Sandra did a wonderful job of reminding us of, it's being present in your body. Now, I know that everybody thinks that's not hard to do, but have you ever been in such a hurry you turned something over, bumped into something, bumped into someone? Because we're not aware of where we are. There's a writer in the Huffington Post who talked about being present to her body, and she writes, as I begin each day, I must remind myself, Aaron, stay where your feet are. If I keep my attention on the place where my feet reside, I have a better chance of remaining in the here and now. Where are your feet this morning? Can you feel them? In your shoes, on the floor, in the sanctuary at Fort Wayne Spiritual Center? Another way to be present in our body is something that we've heard hundreds of times to the point I think we totally disregard it. It's called breathing. We think we breathe, but I actually had a yoga instructor who told me that we, Americans in particular, do not know how to breathe. That we spend all of our time right here, going through our day. And that we rarely breathe. And yet, when you take that deep breath, you are energizing every cell in your body. Anybody suffering from that, I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday? Yeah. One of the ways we can combat that is by breathing. Guess what? Our brains need oxygen. They need us to be present. When you take a breath, it's like hitting the pause button, stopping just for a moment, to be here, to be in your body. Another thing that we can do is savor the present. Now, I just happen to like the way that word sounds. Savor. So savor is about the experience of or delighting in. So I recently began an experiment, Actually, it was a doctor recommendation, but I prefer to call it an experiment, that I slow down and become consciously aware of what I'm eating. Now, for some of you, that's probably not a big deal, but I happen to be the oldest in a family of 5, Southern. And so mealtime at our house looked like everybody sits at the table, we all pray, and then it's, Glenda, get up and get your daddy a cup of tea, a glass of tea. Glenda, we need more mashed potatoes in the bowl. Glenda, are you ready to get dessert ready? At my house, if you were the oldest and you wanted to eat, you better do it quickly if you wanted it to be warm. And so slowing down, I now have to set a timer when I get ready to eat to remind myself that I have plenty of time. Now, the beauty of this experiment is that I have learned to savor my food. When there is no place to go, nothing to do, I can taste every bite. The texture of it, the smell, the different spices that I've put in it. Another interesting thing has happened. I'm also learning to savor the conversation. So oftentimes when we're in a hurry, a conversation looks like, so dear, how was your day? Great, my day was great too. By the way, we need to pick up the kids. We need to go get groceries, right? When there's nothing to do but be present, to savor the moment, you can have the most delightful conversations because you can be fully present with the person sitting next to you. What do you delight in? What is something that brings you joy? When's the last time you took time to delight in something, to savor an experience? We can also attend to the present. So to attend means to pay attention, to set up and pay attention. Merriam-Webster's describes attention as a selective narrowing or focusing of consciousness and receptivity, to observe, to notice. How many multitaskers are in the room? Don't be afraid to confess. Yeah, that you do 10 things at once and at least one of those falls off the plate or doesn't get done completely or doesn't get done the way somebody thought you should do it. Yeah. We are in a world today where we are constantly in movement. The quote that we read earlier by Jameson says, work to work, play to play. What if you only did one thing and just did that one thing? Maybe not all the time, but just once. Like walking. When do you walk and only walk? Walking. Feet on gravel. Breeze on face. Gravel crunching under feet. When do we take time to pay attention, to do just one thing? Try it. You'd be surprised at what you discover. One of my favorites is the next one, which is be in the flow. So the same writer at Huffington Post says that if you want to make the most of your time, lose it. So I want you to imagine for a moment that time is only a concept. So you can't lose it, you can't waste it, you can't run out of it, and there's plenty to go around. What would you do differently if you knew there was no time? I remember at one time there used to be an ad for Las Vegas, and they would advertise Las Vegas as the city that never sleeps. That used to be true of only Las Vegas. In my lifetime, I now know that every developed city never sleeps. Sir Google is always working for you. The Motel 6 is no longer the only place that leaves the light on. Facebook also has a light on all the time for you. Constantly, we are bombarded with things. But what if we could just step into the way of it? Just step into the flow of what is right here, right now. So many of you know that at the beginning of the year, my New Year's resolution was that I would begin to celebrate Sabbath on Monday, that Monday would be my Sabbath. Now, my wife will tell you that I am the Energizer Bunny, that normally I don't stop until something removes my batteries. So, but I knew that this would be good for me, and so I made a commitment to start taking Sabbath on Monday after a conversation with our friend Steve McAfee. And so on Mondays, I shut off my phone, I shut off my computer. I do not anything that I choose not to do, and I make no plans. Now, sometimes I don't do that very well, because I almost can't stand not checking my messages. But other days, I do it really well. And this past Monday, there was snow. Finally, I moved to Fort Wayne, and finally, there's snow. So not only did I have Sabbath Monday, I had a snow day too. It was perfect. And so I sat on my couch, wrapped in my most favorite purple prosperity blanket, remembering how prosperous I am, with a hot drink, and I looked out my picture window at the lake. And I saw the most brilliantly red cardinal sitting on a tree. And a little bit later, the Canadian geese came up and wandered around in my neighbor's yard. And I saw a little wren jump from limb to limb. I have no idea how long I sat there. But what I do know is that it's been a very long time since I experienced the kind of peace that settles in your bones. Don't we long for that kind of peace? If only for a moment. I promise that if you unplug for an hour, I promise the world will not come to an end. I promise that everybody that needed to find you can find you in an hour, and they'll all be okay. So I really want to encourage you to think about stepping into the flow, to just being. We are human doings 99% of the time, unless we're asleep. Wouldn't it be great if we could master being human beings and just being? So my last practice for being present to the now is called acceptance. And it's usually not anything that I do very well. I tend to be a scrapper, and I like to hold on to things. And so often it has claw marks on it when I finally have released it and let it go. Or is of no use to anyone for anything anymore. So, acceptance is about this idea that every spiritual teacher I know, every mentor, every master has said over and over again, wherever you are right now is where you're supposed to be. Whatever experience you're having, whatever circumstance that you're in the midst of is meant to be, or it wouldn't. It's that simple awareness that we are right where we're supposed to be all the time. And oftentimes that's really difficult for us because we have our eye on running away from it, pushing against it, or wishing it away. Can you imagine the power of standing in the moment and realizing that the moment that you're in right now is just one moment in a string of beads? It's just one moment strung together with another moment of another moment that makes up your life. It comes and it surely goes. And the next one comes on the other side of it. I heard my mentor, Martha Creek, talk to a bunch of students this week, and at the end of her training, she was telling us that there had been many circumstances in her life that did not go according to the plan. Does everybody have the plan, right? And oftentimes things did not turn out even the way that she had imagined. Whether it was the loss of her brother, the loss of her father, change in careers, relationships, none of it went the way that she had wanted it to go. But it was perfect instead. What if we knew that it was perfect instead? Perfect. We could be curious. One of my favorite sayings that I learned from Martha is, what good can come of this? Whether it's a good thing or a not so good thing, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, what good can come of this? Would we be more engaged? Would we be more curious? Would we be more willing if we understood that every single moment strung together is about the renewal of our minds and the transformation of our lives? All of it. The great philosopher Havez says that the place you are now was circled on the map by God. The place you are now, circled on the map by God. The writer of 2 Samuel adds to that by saying, isn't this how God has raised my house? Because Source has made an eternal covenant with me, well ordered and secured. Won't Source make all things grow and prosper? Save me and give me all that I desire. All of it is for our benefit. All of it. When we are willing, when we are open, and when we are welcoming, every moment is a present moment filled with presence. Every moment. Just for us. And when we can live in that place of willingness, openness, and welcoming, then every day is another opportunity for my mind to be reformed, for my mind to be renewed, for my life to be transformed, for your lives to be transformed. Welcome. Welcome to right now. Namaste. So I'm going to